Everyone, it's Joe Waxman. And this morning, I would like to talk about Bill Hicks, the comedian and philosopher, I guess you could call him. Um, yeah, we're gonna look at his chart. I think he's a very interesting character. Share my screen. He died quite young, but he was a comedian, he was a stage performer, and he he had a very developed philosophy in life. Let's get started. So he's got this obvious Sagittarius stellium here, which, if you know his work, he was a philosopher. Like, he wasn't just a comedian. He was also a musician and mostly a comedian and stage performer. But yeah, his work was very Sagittarian. He has Mercury, Cazimi, the sun, same exact degree. Within, if these are arc minutes, they call it 2 arc minutes. And what that does is if when a planet's close to the sun, it's considered combust. But when it's exactly together with the sun, it's considered to be sort of elevated in the heart of the sun, and it takes on more prominence and given special, qualities and abilities, so to speak. His Mercury is ruling the 9th house of philosophy, religion, beliefs, higher learning, long distance travels, good luck. Also the 12th house of loss, creativity, imagination, dreams, subconscious, that sort of thing. And in the 3rd house. So the stellium's in the 3rd house. And 3rd house, obviously, for expression, for writing material, obviously for speaking, communicating. That's very strong. Mars is here, very close, within 1 degree, and he's very Martian. He had just had this very aggressive quality to him. He would regularly argue with people, and he really wasn't trying to. He wasn't a very he didn't care if people liked him. I guess he did probably care in some way, but that was part of his act, part of his way of relating to the crowd. It's sort of this cutting, biting quality. It's very aggressive. Mars is, if you look at the synodic cycles, Mars is just starting a new cycle. So it's a baby Mars. So his Mars is very fresh, very active, very aggressive Mars, right? Because it's just past the sun. Moon is in Aries, the sign of Mars, in the 7th house. Right, and I just want to briefly describe the difference between 7th house and 10th house, because they both deal with the public. 7th house deals with relationships, but 7th house is also the masses. And so oftentimes 7th house can be like relating to the masses on stage, because it's still a relationship there. If you're standing on stage performing and you're talking to the crowd, you still have a relationship. That is 7th house. However, if you're dealing with the way it deals with the public here is direct. It's a direct relationship with the public in the 7th house. In the 10th house, it's not direct. It's public image. It's just sort of out there when you're talking nondescriptly. I can be like, most people are stupid, or most people are like, what? I love most people. However, I want to, I'm a humanitarian, so I care about people, but most people are stupid. However, whatever I say, where I'm not relating to anyone in specific, that's 10th house. Or my public image, or anyone's public image, how the public perceives them. It's very different from the 7th house. And so you can see, if you have planets in the 10th house and planets in the 7th house, or you're looking at other people's charts, depending on what planets there are, that's going to differentiate it. And I'm just trying to explain this a little more. Like, for instance, I have malefics in the 10th. Mars and Saturn, and my Saturn is not in good dignity, and therefore, and Mars ruling a sixth house. So my public image is difficult. My Mars is in good dignity, especially by accidental dignity. But I have a difficult public image. Like sometimes people don't like me in public, but when I get into personal direct relationships, it's very different because I have Jupiter there, it's Taurus, I have Mercury there. So people actually feel very differently about it. It's sort of like the analogy I was thinking about. It's like a porcupine. If you get the spines of the porcupine, you're gonna be like, porcupine sucks, man. He hurts you, and just like, he's nasty. But if you get the face of the porcupine, you might be like, oh, porcupine's so cute. He's so nice. He's so sweet. He's so gentle. So anyway, he has Moon in the seventh in Aries. So this does describe like his relationship when he was on stage. He was a performer and he would directly relate to people. That's very much a Moon thing. Like he was very casual with his audience. He would talk directly to them. He would get engaged with them, but he would do it in a Aries way, like just all action, all like kind of like this force, this vitality, this energy, this aggression, no nonsense. And that's also partly due to this youthful Mars, which it rules. Mars rules Aries. Mars is also ruling the second house of speech. So bringing speech and communicate second and third house into the seventh. And then the Moon is very relatable, even though it's an aggressive Moon. And Aries Moon is, man, they're always ready to fight. They can be, even if their sun sign is Libra or like Cancer or what anything, they're gonna be ready to fight. They're always gonna want to fight you. Not necessarily want to fight you, but they're definitely ready. Aries is always ready to fight. He's got this really strong inconjunct between Neptune and Scorpio and the Moon. And so that's interesting because second house deals with the voice, but it's also the mouth and it's also our eating habits. And Scorpio definitely has probably the most destructive capacity out of any sign. And so he did a lot of drugs, drinking, and smoking. That's despite his domicile Saturn. But the thing is, it didn't ruin him because he's so disciplined. But there is this inconjunct with his Moon. So like he's not going to see his own sort of delusions, if you will, because Neptune is the imagination, the subconscious, the part of our mind that it can be, on the one hand, very awake, but mostly dreaming and delusional. That's mostly what Neptune represents. It's a very, almost like a pyramid, like a very small amount of truth and a lot of fantasy, right? That's why it's a planet of creativity and movies, artistry, and drugs and alcohol. And Neptune in Scorpio, right, in the second house, very destructive tendencies towards consumption. So again, the drugs, alcohol, smoking. He was able to quit not smoking, but the drugs and alcohol, I believe, and that's due to his very strong Saturn in Capricorn in the fourth house. He was born into a religious family, and I think he was quoted as saying like his father would be like, if we scratch the neighbor's Subaru, should we leave a note? Like that was their concern. Like that's the type of mentality, like very puritanical, very rigid. There's an interesting quote. I want to share my screen again. Because if I don't, you won't see it. From Wikipedia, which I found was really interesting, and I'm going to tie this into his chart. The elder Hicks would say, I believe that the Bible was the literal word of is the literal word of God. That's his father. And Bill would counter, "No, it's not, Dad." "Well, I believe that it is." "Well," Bill replied, "you know, some people believe that they're Napoleon. That's fine. Beliefs are neat. Cherish them, but don't share them like they're the truth." Okay, that's go back to here. That's Bill Hicks with his very Sagittarian stellium. Um, and then not only that, yeah, so that's his upbringing. Saturn is in Capricorn in the fourth house, fourth house. And whenever Saturn is in Capricorn in the fourth house, you know that the person had very strict, disciplined parents who just kind of made them work hard and toe the line. But also, if you look at Jupiter, Jupiter's in Aquarius, widely conjunct South Node in the fifth house. And this is excellent for comedy because Aquarius is that's the number one sign for comedy. Probably Gemini's number two and Leo's number three, maybe. Sagittarius being opposite, Gemini can also, I mean, any sign, you can have comedy out of any sign, mostly. But some are more prominent than others. Definitely Aquarius is up there, then maybe Gemini and Leo. Those are my top three. And Jupiter in Aquarius is very, very often one of the combinations for a comedian. But Jupiter and Saturn are both at the end of their synodic cycle, which is the sun. So like if you were to play this forward, the sun would catch up to Saturn and then Jupiter and start the new cycle. Like it had just passed Mars. And so Mars is new and fresh, young and spirited and full of vitality. Saturn and Jupiter are very old. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because these planets are sort of like tired and old and jaded, right? And that was very much a part of his routine, even though he's very Jupiterian, Sagittarian. His Jupiter and even though his Saturn was in domicile in Capricorn, they're both like almost had an attitude of an old man, like, you know what? I don't even care anymore. Do whatever you want. You want to drink and smoke? Fine. Just know that, life is a dream. And, he would wax philosophical and just be like, it doesn't matter, man. Just, peace and love. And yeah. But it wasn't about all peace and love either, because if you listen to him, he would talk about like, we need to wipe out most of humanity. He would say stuff like that. And I think that was also just to shock people. Like he would just be very dark humor, heavy, dark humor. It could also be, prominent because Neptune is in Scorpio in the second house. So his voice, the things he's saying in his mind are becoming kind of dark with this influence here, especially with the inconjunct to his moon. That's going to translate, but it just in a very, not in a very smooth way, right? It's just going to be very, inconjunct is a 6th house, 12th house relationship. So moon is 6th house, 6 places away from Neptune. So that's bringing in 6th house, so conflict. And then Neptune's 8 houses away and in Scorpio from moon. So that's bringing in the very dark heaviness. So that's what this red line creates. Conflict moon and deep, dark, heavy, death-oriented Neptune with his voice. His ascendant lord is Venus. It's part of this Sagittarius stellium in the 3rd house. He's going into 3rd house matters. And that's trying the moon. So he's bringing, he's really able to connect with his ascendant lord. So this represents him, his body, his self, and, connecting to his heart and his emotions, which are with the crowd. which are within the, relationships. All right, so that's quite strong here. Jupiter, which is the dispositor of the stellium here, and in the 5th house is also connecting to the ascendant. So that's very strong. Saturn's not making much of a connection to anything. But, I always think that Saturn, when it's in good dignity, those are the people that I won't need to tell, don't do drugs and not drink alcohol. Like, even though he died young and he probably shortened his life a lot with his abuses, he was able to stop, and it did not ruin his career at all. He had an incredibly successful career. But like, if your Saturn's weak, you're getting lost in drugs and alcohol, it's going to ruin your career. Therefore, it's ruining your path, and that's far more. It's far more important to do what you came here to do, to reach your potential, than it is to live till 100. With your physical health intact, even if you never lived up to your potential. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he burned hot and bright, and yeah, he died young. He died young of cancer, pancreatic cancer. I think it was like at the age of 32. And he did lots of drugs and drank a lot of alcohol and smoked cigarettes, which I think is mostly here, and then also because of the in conjunction to the moons, he didn't really see it very well. He didn't understand it very well with his moon. Moon's the inner mind and the heart, but it didn't slow him down, did not stop him. He was very productive. Yeah, and it would have been nice if he lived longer, but he did have a lot of wisdom, and it's questionable. Like, some of his stuff might be questionable, but that's okay. There was still this very well defined and thought out philosophy to life and understanding of things. Now, Chiron is in the 6th house in Pisces, and Chiron is definitely has issues with wounds, potentially rejection, but that's not the issue here. The issue here is that it's health, relating to his health. So Chiron in the 6th, which, by the way, Jupiter is ruling the 6th house, and Jupiter being old, it does not have a lot of vitality. Okay, so health would be 6th house and 1st house. Jupiter's dispositing his ascendant lord. So again, and then it's close enough to the South Node. South Node is old and past as well, more spiritual than physical. So already his health is not looking too good. And now Uranus in Virgo is opposite his Chiron. So that's difficult. Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune, these are malefics. These do have negative effects. They can have positive effects, but they have a lot of negative effects as well, because they are not physical planets. They are spiritual planets. So they're more for the evolution of our soul, and that often means they create a lot of problems for us in the world, for our ego, for our health, for our body, for the smoothness of our life. They don't bring smooth life. Neptune will bring delusion, creativity, but maybe insanity. Pluto can bring great crisis, power, strength, potency, but incredible desire, crisis, death, deep transformation. Uranus brings shocks and sudden events, accidents, car crashes, but also illumination, powerful intuition, powerful ideas, awakening. All right, so these are definitely not malefic. So if it's a difficult aspect, which is an opposition is a difficult aspect, that's going to negatively influence Chiron, which is in the 6th house. And the 12th house also deals with health, more mental health, because it's the subconscious, but still. And it's opposite the 6th house. So, anything that's in the 12th house is also influencing the 6th house. Anything that's in the 6th house is also influencing the 12th house. Pluto is in the 12th, so it's still casting its shadow on the 6th house, an aspect. So there definitely are issues there. The nodes have a difficult aspect with the ascendant, which is the body. So that also is causing tension. Pluto has a light square with within 3 degrees, so it's not too far away with Venus, which is the ascendant lord. So that represents his body. That's not great, right? It's causing a lot of destructive qualities, and Pluto, again, that would bring in those scorpionic influences, that deep destructive quality. And Pluto on the 12th also is very difficult. I have Pluto on the 12th, so I know this. And Pluto on the 12th, if you do not deal with your subconscious, you will be driven to destruction, because it's that deep. It's not the conscious mind. It's beneath the conscious mind. So we're mostly driven by our subconscious anyway. We don't even realize that, but that's where our karma is kept, in this 12th house, in our subconscious. And if you don't deal with your trauma, which both Uranus and Pluto can represent, they can represent trauma. Then, and if either of these are in the 12th house, you're going to be driven towards extremes, to dangerous situations, to drugs, to alcohol, to destructive behavior, and you're not going to be able to control it. The cure for this is to really clean out your subconscious, to heal all traumatic wounds, childhood trauma, whatever, any traumatic events, adult trauma, childhood trauma, any trauma. And then they can be powerful assets. Then, you know, you have a very, once your subconscious is clean, Pluto, especially in the 12th house, but also Uranus, then they can be very powerful. Like, you can really, that's a whole nother topic. I don't want to go too far into that, but it can be very powerful. Yeah, but there was probably some stuff that he just did not work through, and it drove him to just, you know, eat and drink his way towards an early grave. Yeah, but let's look at his draconic chart, which I love because it's an aspect. It's sort of like the moon, and the moon has a special relationship with us because it's the only planet or body that revolves around the Earth, and we live on the Earth. Remember, we don't live on the sun. People get it mixed up. People think that the sun is who we are, but we're not the sun. We are the Earth. The Earth is our mother. The Earth is where we live, and the representation of the Earth is the eastern horizon. We're actually somewhere in the middle, but the eastern horizon is the beginning. It's because it's where the planets rise, right? And we create our birth chart from where we rise, from where we're born. So, you know, we don't create it from where we die. You know, we can create a death chart, but our natal chart is where we're born. So the eastern horizon represents birth, and our birth, and the birth of each day, and it's the orientation to the whole everything. Everything is based on the ascendant, right? We don't base our chart on the sun sign. We base it on the ascendant. So it's kind of annoying when people say the ascendant is just a mask. It's not. It's far more important than the sun. Just point blank, it's more important than the sun. So, you know, put that in your astrological pipe and smoke it. Anyway, he has Chiron right in the first house, his draconic Chiron. Oh, my point was, because the ascendant is so personal to us, that the moon, being revolving around the only body to revolve around the Earth, which is ourself, which is us, it's like it has a special significance. So we have to give the moon and its charts special significance. Therefore, draconic chart is based on the north node of the moon. So it has a moon significance, and therefore a very, very personal significance to us. That's why I think it really represents a deeper layer of the moon, or the nodes, the north node. Anyway, so it has a moon quality. We feel this on the inside, and it's subtly projected on the outside. But Chiron in the first, okay, so first house dealing with body, Chiron, wounded reject, you know, Chiron is also a healer and a teacher. So he has these qualities of being like this oddball outcast, you know, issues with wounds, and obviously health. because Chiron's in the 6th in natally, but also wisdom, philosophy, teaching. That's also a higher quality of Chiron. And Chiron's opposite his natal moon to the exact degree. So there's going to be issues around, there's going to be strong Chironic issues with him that he's going to bring into his routine, because moon's in the 7th. That's where he's relating to people. And then if we look at the 7th house, these two first-class malefics, Pluto and Uranus in Aries, adding to that really biting, acerbic, destructive quality that Bill Hicks had, that we kind of love. It's fascinating and refreshing. Here's somebody who's just like not afraid to tell the truth. Pluto and Uranus are sure not afraid. Pluto is more like it has the psychological destructive quality, and Uranus is the shocking truth. That's really, Uranus, shocking truth. Uranus is also about comedy, and it rules timing, because it's so now, it's just like a bolt of lightning. And Pluto is very psychological and deep and hard hitting, heavy hitting. All right. Moon is in Scorpio, debilitated in the 2nd house. So again, we're getting back up for this very destructive quality, this mouth, both coming out and going in, the destructive qualities of the mouth, what comes out of the mouth and what going into the mouth, smoking, drinking, drugs, all that. His diet probably wasn't very good either. And he'd just be, if you confronted him about it, I could just see him being like, just waxing philosophical and just be like, hey man, we're all gonna die, but in a very evolved way. I don't want to shortchange him. I think he did have a certain amount of wisdom. I don't want to, overstate that either. Obviously, he had very destructive qualities, which I don't think are all that great either. But he did have he did have a well-developed sense of philosophy and wisdom. And so, yeah. 8th house ascendant, even though it's in Taurus, still, again, 8th house, heavy, themes of death and destruction and crisis and sex, and just heavy hitting. Neptune is in the 9th, right opposite the Mars. I mean, by 1 degree, the Mars, and then the 2 degrees, the Mercury and Sun. But Neptune is always prominent with performers, artists, actors, things of that nature. And it's in the 9th house, so then his spiritual, his philosophical understanding is becoming more spiritual, because Neptune also rules spirituality, right? And that had to do with that quote that I said early on with his dad, like where he's quoting the Bible, and his dad has a very small view of Christianity and spirituality. He has got a very expanded view, very philosophical, spiritual. And then we get the Leo Sun, Leo Mercury, Leo Mars in the 10th, moving to the 11th. So career and career success, that's very prominent, for, anyone famous in the public light, we would see this. And again, this is how he feels on the inside. Right, so you can check your own draconic chart, and you got to use it on top of the natal chart, and it'll provide a lot of insight. You'll see the same thing. This is how he felt, right? This is how he felt on the inside. He felt like, kingly, royal Leo Sun in the 10th, 11th house, 10th house, Sun and Mars gain directional strength. So this is very prominent. He was very confident, very comfortable on stage, very easy stage presence, easy public persona presence. Venus is the ascendant lord, and that's directly in the 10th house, because 10th house cusp is in Cancer. Disposited by the moon, and in conjunct here to Mercury and the Sun by exact degree. Like I said, in conjuncts are that difficult aspect, bringing in conflict and also the heavy hidden qualities of the 8th house. death, destruction. So, and the sun also represents vitality. This is his body, ascendant lord. So that also could have significance as far as his health is concerned, right? Just the tense aspect, another tense aspect between his vitality and his ascendant lord, his body. And then Saturn is over Pluto, and Saturn together with Pluto is just so intense and heavy and serious, right? Like this is just like there's not much fun when Saturn and Pluto mix together. There really isn't. It's not a fun like combination. It really kills the fun. You know, if it's in the, you know, whatever house it's in, it's just going to destroy any lightness that house has. And it would just be all seriousness, all work, all hardness, all heaviness. So this is 12th house. So Jupiter's here, thank goodness. Because without Jupiter, I would just be like, man, this guy had serious, heavy, dark issues to contend with. Because this is a subconscious mind. Jupiter is going to help lighten it up. Jupiter is the savior here. Jupiter is the, you know, the great benefic, the philosopher, the, you know, the Santa Claus of the chart. He's gonna help with this, and that's, you know, we get a lot of Bill Hicks in this, like this deep, heavy, destructive quality that has a philosophical, you know, sort of brilliance to it. Like that's why he was tolerated, because he could just be like, he could be very heavy and destructive, and then just throw in this philosophical wisdom that sort of made it all okay. People are like, oh, okay, I get you. You're very, you have wisdom, obviously. So we'll tolerate the destructiveness and you know, allow it to be humorous instead of offensive. Right. So that's pretty much, you know, as far as I want to go with this chart. I think I've said enough. And Bill Hicks, by the way, continued to be, he gained even more popularity after he died. And I think that's 11th house, because 11th house deals with, you know, North Node. He would have been even more that's the thing. If he had lived longer, he would have been even more popular, because North Node is in Leo in the 11th house. And he did not really live to see the full maturity of his North Node. But the 11th house is about career success. So, yep. That's it. And guys, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. That really helps me out a lot. I want my channel to grow. So, you know, share this, you know, tell your friends about it, get your friends to subscribe. And hit me up with any celebrities that you want me to do their chart. I like doing celebrity charts because everyone can look at their life. I can look at their life, I can read it, and we can all make sense of their chart together. So if you want to book a reading, go to my website, macroastrology.com, or email me at macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. Like, subscribe, and share. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.